Shalom Alechem, Assalamu Alaikum. Today we're going to read one of my tabs that I've been meaning to go over. I don't think I've read this in full, but basically this is an article from a website, howdoirepent.org, and the title is Importance of Prayer and Standing Before the King. This is from August the 25th, 2023. Let me just zoom in a little bit. In the book of Chronicles, God is depicted as the reigning king of Israel, who rules by the Torah. In the end, when we are living in God's universal kingdom, all nations will acknowledge God as king. For now, we are granted access to come before the king in prayer. At times of prayer, we should truly understand that we are standing before the great king. This reality is punctuated by the posture taken by Mizrahi Jews, Orthodox Christians, and Muslims when standing for prayer. Jews from Eastern Mizrahi lands will often place the left hand at the top of the belly beneath the sternum. The right hand covers the left hand, and the left hand clutches the thumb of the right. Let me just demonstrate. Christians lie their hands across the chest, right over left, and Muslims place the right hand directly over the left at the top of the belly. Okay, directly over the left hand, the top of the belly. Got it. So it's similar to how Mizrahi Jews would place their hands at the top of the belly. It's just that the difference is the thumbs. The posture is fairly consistent across the board, whereas Christians lay their hands across the chest. But what is it all about? This is the posture taken when standing before a king. In the generation of Christ, this reality was easy to comprehend. Each worshiper knew what it meant to stand before a king. Jesus Christ said in Mark 11:25, "When you stand praying, forgive others, so that your Father in heaven will forgive you." Paul talks about Jesus Christ's governance as Christ and King, but he magnifies the place of the Creator by emphasizing the submission of the Son to the Father in 1 Corinthians 15:24-28. He explains, "Then the end will come when he, Jesus, hands over the kingdom to God, the Father, after he has destroyed all dominion, authority, and power. For he must reign until he has put all his enemies under his feet. The last enemy to be destroyed is death, for he has put everything under his feet." Now, when it says that everything has been put under him, it is clear that this does not include God himself, who put everything under Christ. When he has done this, then the Son himself will be made subject to him, who put everything under him, so that God may be all in all. Okay, looks like someone recorded this already, but anyway. Prayer expresses our faith in God and shows that we are dependent on him. We are given the ability to make our requests before the King, as in Matthew 6, verses 9-15. "This then is how you should pray, Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name, your kingdom come, your will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us today our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we also have forgiven our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. For if you forgive other people when they sin against you, your heavenly Father will also forgive you. But if you do not forgive others their sins, your Father will not forgive your sins." If you look closely at this prayer, it becomes clear that the focus in prayer should be the Creator. Prayer is the order of the kingdom. Okay, you know what? I got the gist of it. The reason I was reading this is because how should we stand before a king? That was essentially what I wanted to cover. They say that prayer is the service of the heart. During the time of the temple, the sacrifices, korbanot, were used to draw near to God. The word korban means to draw near, and this drawing near took place at specific times. Actually, korban also means sacrifice. To help understand the importance of prayer times, there are appointed festivals throughout the year, and each one of these special days includes specific prayers. Okay, again, I'm going to skip over that. A disciple is to imitate his rabbi in all things. Our rabbi, Yeshua, was an observant Jew. He prayed during these appointed times. Like all observant Jews were praying 3 times a day, long before the birth of Mashiach. Jewish tradition insists, and Scripture seems to support the idea, that it was Ezra who canonized formal prayer almost 500 years before the times of the apostles, shortly after the Jewish return from Babylonian captivity. Now, Ezra led the people in, number 1, the work that led to rebuilding the temple. Number 2, gathering the people together to read the Torah publicly. He would read at different times during the week and during the afternoon service on Shabbat. He led the Jews back to embracing Shabbat and observing the festivals, the appointed times. Number 4, he also established the Great Assembly, which was responsible for forming the liturgy of prayer that is prayed 3 times a day and on every festival. Even before the time of Ezra, the Bible tells us that both the prophet Daniel and King David made a regular practice of praying 3 times a day. This is pretty much why I'm reading this. This is a good review. And if it's not review, it's good to know. Daniel 6 verse 10 explains, "And in his upper room, with his windows open toward Jerusalem, he, Daniel, knelt down on his knees 3 times that day, and prayed and gave thanks before his God, as was his custom since early days." Notice 3 times a day. It says in Psalms 55, 16 to 17, "As for me, I will call upon God, and Adonai shall save me. Evening and morning and at noon I will pray and cry aloud, and he shall hear my voice." Many of the prayers that were used in the temple are preserved as psalms. Many of these were written by King David and his elders in preparation for the temple service. Every morning, the Levites would sing a song of the day, which is a specific psalm composed by David. Importance of prayer during specific times during the day. The Apostle Peter prayed 3 times a day. That's news to me. In Acts 2:15, he prayed with the church at the 3rd hour. Okay, in Acts 3:1, Peter and John went up together to the temple at the hour of prayer, the 9th hour. That's 3 p.m. In Acts 10, verse 9, Peter went up to the housetop to pray at the 6th hour, noon. Beautiful. That's really, I think this is what I needed to read. This is what I needed to hear. These times clearly reflect the usual and expected rhythms of biblical prayer. So this is not just on the Sabbath, this is every single day. Every day, not just on the holy day or the holy days. Before the time of Mashiach, there was an order, a siddur of prayer that was memorized through daily practice. With the creation of the printing press, about 500 years ago, doesn't seem that long ago, an actual prayer book called a siddur was published for the first time. These are prayers written for weekdays, the Shabbat, and for each festival. Ironically, or maybe not so ironically, a tradition exists that Paul and Peter actually composed What? They composed the core prayers of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur still used today. Okay, I have to fact check that one. Not sure about that. At the heart of daily Jewish prayer lies the Amidah, the standing prayer. It is said in the slightest whisper or just the motion of the lips. As described above, one praying the Amidah does so with the conciseness that he or she is standing directly before the King of the universe. It is not easy. Jews bow several times during the Amidah, highlighting this reality. The prayer has 19 blessings. And I would be amiss to say we should bow as our forefathers did. They bowed with their head to the ground, not merely bowing in midair, but going down and prostrating on the earth. It begins with 3 blessings of praise and concludes with 3 blessings of thanksgiving. So, I don't know if I said this part, the prayer is 19 blessings. The blessings placed between these 2 bookends are adjusted for holidays and special occasions. I'm not going to read all these, but they appear in the order given below. A great resource, actually, you know what, I'm going to just look, blessing, a prayer up to point 2, up to 16, and then 17 to 19, Thanksgiving. A great resource to learn about Jewish prayer as performed by the early Jewish saints and those who have adopted their practice is a book called First Steps in Messianic Jewish Prayer by Aaron Ebby. Chabad.org also has the Amidah here. If you are already familiar with this prayer and would like to download a free app, okay. If one takes the time to learn the Amidah and incorporate it into devotional times, or makes the choice to pause during the day to pray like our first teachers, they will certainly draw closer to Elohim and see tremendous spiritual growth. So that's all for this video. I found it a good review. Number 1, how one must stand before the creator of the universe. Again, the decorum, the etiquette is you place your left hand just under your, above your belly, but below the sternum, and then the right hand goes over. And you could cross your thumbs, the Jewish way, the Mizrahi way, or not, the Muslim way. The Christian way is above your sternum, over the chest. And praying 3 times a day. And there are names for those times. Let me look them up quickly. Okay, this is HebrewForChristians.com. It says here, the daily prayer services, Avodah Sheba Lev. It is the custom to pray 3 times a day, corresponding to the 3 patriarchs, the 3 times of temple sacrifice, Tamid offerings, and biblical examples such as Daniel and King David, praying 3 times in the day, of praying 3 times. These 3 times are accommodated by 3 prayer services offered on a daily basis. According to rabbinic tradition, a minyan, an assembly of 10 bar mitzvah men, is required for corporate prayer services. Reform and liberal Jews give full equality to women and therefore count them as part of a minyan. Most synagogues have a chazan, a cantor, who is a professional or lay professional singer employed for the purpose of leading the congregation in prayer. Devotion from the heart, called kavanat halev, is considered essential to true prayer. That's a really good point. It should be from the heart. Kavanah implies concentration, worship, and single-mindedness. Prayer without kavanah is like a body without a soul, meaning that the attitude of service of the heart, avodah sheba lev, is required when praying. The morning service, shacharit. This begins very early in the morning, similar to the evening service. The shacharit adds Torah, reading on Shabbat, holidays, Monday and Thursday, an additional service called a musaf, is also sometimes added. Both sections are considered core to the service. Okay, preliminaries. The following morning blessings are sometimes recited at home rather than at the synagogue. Modeh Ani, Yirat Adonai upon bathing, donning zitzit, it should say, donning the talit, donning tefillin, and Yetzer Hara. Okay, that's the preliminary part. Birkat HaShachar. These additional morning blessings are often recited at the synagogue. Ma Tovu, Adon Olam, Yigdal, Birkat HaTorah, Birchot HaShachar, the Akedah, Leolam Yehi Adam. Warm up for prayer. The Pesukei de Zemira, verses of song section of services, include a lot of psalms and hymns and function somewhat like a warm-up for prayers. The Kaddish, Baruch She'amar, Hodu, Ashrei, Yish Tabach. The Shema and its blessings. The Shema functions as a creedal formula for Jews. The Baruch Hu, Birkat Yotzer, Ahava Rabbah. The Kiryat Shema, Birkat Geula. The Amida, the Shemone Esrei, or Amida, is first recited silently and then is recited again by the cantor. Shemone Esrei. The Amida, standing prayers recited on Shabbat and holy days. Yom Tov, shorter versions are recited. Tachanun, supplication, recited immediately after the Amida. 3 Hallel, praise sections from Tehillim, said in Rosh Chodesh and holidays. The Torah service, Torah reading, Kiryat HaTorah and Aliyot, is normally next in the Shacharit Seder. So notice that this is only the morning. This is only the 9 o'clock prayers. Birkat HaTorah, opening the Holy Ark, Torah processional, Torah blessings and readings. So this is the on Shabbat and Aliyot. Raising of the scroll, Haftarah blessings, Berit Hadashah blessings. I think that's for Messianics, if I'm not mistaken. New Testament, return of Torah to Ark. Conclusion, the Shacharit service usually ends with additional prayer and praise. Let me just double check. Ashrei uva letzion, Aleinu, Ein Kelohenu, half Kaddish, prayer upon leaving the synagogue. The afternoon service, Mincha. Okay, let me just double check whether that was... So that is all the morning. This is all 9 a.m. And then we have the Mincha afternoon, which is 12 o'clock. And let's double check what is Berit Hadashah, New Covenant or Apostolic Writings. This service may occur during the early afternoon or be combined with the Ma'ariv service. The Torah is read only in Shabbat and Yom Kippur. Okay, I'm not going to read all these, but essentially, yes, this is what it's called, the Mincha, the afternoon service. So I think that's should be 12 p.m., if I'm not mistaken. Afternoon, if not 3 p.m. And then the evening service, Ma'ariv. Since the Jewish day begins at sundown, this is technically the first prayer service of the day. So this cannot be 3 p.m. Sundown is usually 6 p.m. In the Middle East anyway. This is technically the first prayer service of the day. This service includes preliminary prayers, Shema and its blessings, Amida. Okay. In addition to these 3 daily services, a 4th additional prayer service called Musaf, additional, is added on Shabbat and major holidays. A 5th prayer service, Ne'ilah, is only recited on Yom Kippur. Most Sidurim contain the prayers for evening, Ma'ariv, morning, Shacharit, and afternoon Mincha services. So Mincha, I believe that's 3 p.m. Ma'ariv is 6 p.m. Morning is 9 p.m. But if we're going by technically, if we're going to go by the temple offering times, faithfully, it should be 9, 12, and 3, not 9, 3, and 6. If you attend a service on Shabbat, the Siddur used will probably be one for Shabbat and holy days. Note that in addition to these prayer services, an observant Jew will offer up many personal prayers and blessings throughout the day. I was going to mention, it's not just 3, you could do more than that, including blessings for meals and when going to bed. And I will add, as well as traveling before you travel, and then when you return from your travels. So yes, King David and Daniel, the prophet Daniel, they both prayed 3 times a day. And those coincided with the times for the sacrifices in the temple. Again, 9 a.m., 12 p.m., and 3 p.m. So I'm going to look up, we could just pause for a moment. Okay, so interestingly enough, the Episcopal Church, they espouse praying 7 times a day. 7 hours, usually counted as a single hour, in the middle of the night, prime, at sunrise, terce. Okay, so that, hold on, middle of the night, that's 1. Sunrise, another. 9 a.m., noon, 3 p.m., sunset, and bedtime. So if we're going to follow this kind of example, and why should we? I'm going to get into that. So the middle of the night would be, I'm going to say, what's the middle of the night? 3 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m., 4:30 perhaps. But if we're going by an hour, then that would be an hour before sunrise. So if we're going to be technical about it, let's just say if sunrise is 6, then it should be 5. And then, so you have 4:30 or 5. Sunrise, 6 a.m., then 9 a.m., and then 12 p.m., 3 p.m. Those coincide with the sacrificial times. Sunset, roughly 6 p.m., just estimate. And then bedtime would be 9 p.m. So 9 p.m., that would be 7. So if you're going to bed right after your prayers, let's just say you end at 9:30 and you go to bed at 10, you would be waking up roughly 4:30, 5. So that's about 7 hours. That could work. That's doable. But that's going to take a lot of discipline. That's not easy. So you could even try to make it fit a more realistic schedule and say the first prayers would be 5 a.m. Okay, that's reasonable. For a lot of people, maybe it's not, but 5 a.m. And then 6 a.m. Okay, and then 9 a.m. And then 12 p.m. 3 p.m. Sunset, 6 p.m. roughly. Let's just estimate. So it's the 6th one. And then bedtime. Let's just say 8:30, between 8 to 9. Okay, so you're giving yourself roughly, again, if you're gonna go with 8, just to give yourself a little bit of wiggle room there. Then you go to bed 9, wake up at 5 for prayer. So you would have 8 hours. So you're getting at least 7-8 hours a night. And that's very good. That's ideal. So why should we do this? Praying either 3 times a day, as mentioned by the examples of King David, the prophet Daniel. But we read here in both translations in Psalm 119, 7 times in a day doesn't say pray, but have I praised thee? And how do you praise the creator of the universe? Well, worship, bowing down to the ground, prostration, and that usually involves prayer. So I'm not saying this that it's equivocally saying pray, but I'm open to the possibility that, and I hope you are too, that this could mean prayer. And I'm not saying for 7 hours a day we're praying. Yes, we have to be reasonable. We have to be pragmatic, especially if you're working full time, working 8-hour, 12-hour, 16-hour shifts, however long your shifts are. You can't be praying for 7 hours a day. You only have so many hours to eat, to sleep, and to work. So I think, in my personal opinion, if we focus the greater, the biggest percentage of prayer time on 9 o'clock, 12 o'clock, and 3 o'clock, let's just say 30 minutes each. That's an hour and a half, right? And then the other prayers, the other 4, let's just say they are 10 to 15 minutes each. Maybe even 5. I mean, maybe you're having a busy day and you can only fit in 5 minutes. But let's just say best case scenario, 15 minutes for the other 4. That's 30 minutes times 2, or 15 times 4, which is an hour. Roughly, that's an hour. And then you've got an hour and a half. So that's 2 hours and a half of praying per day. 2.5 hours out of 24 hours. Is that fair? I'd say that's reasonable. But if you're having a very busy day and you can, bare minimum, you're doing 15 minutes for the 9, 12, and 3. Now you're really, trying to condense it. That's 45 minutes. And then if you do 5 minutes times 4, that's 20. So you're still doing at least an hour of praying a day. So you're doing a minimum an hour, maximum 2.5. It can be very, very scientific. And prayer, again, should not be just doing it just because you want to, or doing it just because you're doing it to check the box and say, okay, I did it, and just have it be routine. It has to really come from the heart. You have to want to do it out of love for our Creator, not just merely out of duty or obligation, but out of passion, out of love and respect, out of worship, out of admiration, out of, yes, you could say fear, the Yira Yah, Yira Adonai, a deep reverence, praising Him, thanking Him. It doesn't have to be rote. It doesn't have to be, as I reading the descriptions of the Shacharit, the Mincha, and then the other one, I forgot the name right now. I think it's Ma'avim. But in any case, we have the prayer from the Mashiach, Yehoshua, the Our Father prayer, the disciples' prayer, you could call it. Yes, you have the Shema, you have the Amida, there's also the bedtime Shema as well. So there's a lot of different prayers, including the Psalms, that can be used. And then probably I'm not saying that this is right or wrong, but from a genuine place, heartfelt, when you're just crying out with all your heart, with all your soul to Adonai, to Elohim, you're just speaking from the heart, either silently or out loud, but speaking from a place of purity, from a place of removing the masks, removing all that separates you from our Creator. All false pretenses, all falsity, all fakeness, just being, opening up to Him with all your, spilling your heart out to Him. He's a good Father. He has open ears, repenting to Him, confessing to Him, thanking Him, just being true to Him in spirit and in truth, with the proper reverence and respect. Is that not what He wants? Just for His children to speak to Him, to depend on Him, and to hear Him whenever we read His holy words. We're hearing His voice, and we are guided by the Holy Spirit, the Parakletos. We're walking by the Spirit. So that's all for this video. It was much longer than I anticipated. I was only going to merely cover standing before the king and then prayer. And then we got into a little more detailed, like a systematic approach to prayer based on the scriptural precedents that we observe. And then we see this 7 times a day. It's very important to follow the scriptural example. This one is more speculation, but the 3 times are very solid. It is very clear that prayer did coincide with the 3 sacrificial times that lined up with the temple sacrifices. Again, 9 a.m., 12 p.m., and 3 p.m. So thank you again for your time. We're actually going to close this video now officially. And until next time in video, al shalom aleichem, assalamu alaikum, irini mazisu, pax vobiscum. Peace be unto you and merry